Hello, I'm Freddie, and today I'm going to be talking about national debt. The reason I'm talking about national debt just before the election is it is probably the most lied about and misconstrued conception in the whole of British politics. There is a very common narrative which is told and believed in the whole of Britain that the Labour Party often come into power, spend all the money, and then leave so that the Tories can fix the economy. This is a completely untrue rhetoric, and I am here today to disprove this and debunk all the lies and misconceptions created by the right-wing media about Labour and national debt. People often say that the Labour Party borrow far too much for their manifesto, their schemes and initiatives. During the last 9 years, the Tory Party have borrowed over 670 billion, and according to the Tories' right, Labour must have spent far more than this, as the Tories are the fiscally conservative party and don't spend as much. Well, it took Labour 33 years to borrow 500 billion. So in less than a decade, the Tories borrowed more and far more than the Labour Party did in over 30 years. So there's direct proof that the Tory Party in fact borrow more than the Labour Party. Once again, I've got some more stats here. During the last 9 years, under the Tory Party, who got elected in 2010 because of a promise that they would close and destroy the deficit, we have seen an £880 billion increase in our national debt, almost doubling it. And not only this, when the Tories spend ridiculous amounts of money, they don't spend it like Labour plan to do with small amounts on the economy, on working people, on healthcare, on education, etc., on public services. They spend it on the rich, on outsourcing, on ridiculous, stupid money schemes, which never actually work. Conservative-led changes to tax, including corporation tax, inheritance tax, capital gains tax and the bank levy, will cost the government £70 billion in 6 years. And to compare this to the cost of the Labour government, which the Tories stated was absolutely unaffordable and ridiculous, it cost £21.4 billion more. The Tories spent £21.4 billion alone more on tax cuts than the whole of Labour's manifesto. Not only that, the Tories have spent even more money on ridiculous things. The government wasted £16 billion on a nuclear power plant, as the company who was supposed to build it abandoned their plans. We have seen this occur over and over again with Carillion, with that company, with other outsourcing companies in the Tories, because they don't nationalise public services. They let other dodgy companies do it, who often pull out and cost the government and the taxpayer billions. And how many of you heard about that in the press? Probably none. How many times have you heard that the Labour Party are unaffordable in the press? Hundreds and hundreds of times. Not only that, private water monopolies have promised to bring efficiency to the economy under the Tories. Their idea that outsourcing brings efficiency and competition is also wrong. During the past decade, the 9 companies have loaded £42 billion. That's almost as much as the whole of the Labour manifesto in debt onto consumers. And as they have done this, they have made £18.8 billion in profits. This is the economic cost of the Tory Party. They actually spend more than the Labour government ever has and ever will. And another claim made by the press, made by Tory voters, made by Tory MPs, is that the Tory Party often stimulate the economy, increase growth, and increase wealth. Once again, this is a completely incorrect statement. For the first 7 or 8 years, in the millennia under the Labour government, before the financial crash, the average growth per year, so the economy, the Labour government delivered was 2.8%. If you compare this to the average growth during the last about 5 years under the Tory government, this is almost a whole 1% more. And for those of you who argue, and a lot of you will, that this was because of the financial crash, 2 years after the financial crash, before the Tory government managed to get in, the Labour government still managed to make a 1.7% increase of GDP growth in the economy. If you compare this to the Tory Party, after their first 2 years of being in power, this is 0.2% more. Pretty much every single stat you find on the internet will show, if it's from a good source, that the Tories in fact spend, borrow, waste, and create more money and create less money than any Labour government. So please spread this message around and tell others that in fact the rhetoric that the Labour government spend too much, don't create wealth, and their economy always needs to be fixed by the Tory Party is completely and utterly wrong. Thank you very much.